In the middle of the night, I heard giggling echoing from the living room. Even though only my husband and I live here, Tomas and I have been married for 5 years, living in a peaceful small house, but we still have no children. We always longed for a child, but time only left behind waiting and silence. One day, we received a small box placed at our doorstep with no sender's name. Inside were 2 exquisitely crafted wooden dolls. Below them was a card stating it was a gift from a friend. I didn't understand who sent them or why, but I was strangely drawn to them. That evening, a rustling sound outside the door made me uneasy, even though the door was securely locked. A blurry shadow flitted across the corner of the room. My heart tightened. The 2 dolls were no longer still. They seemed to be moving. Their glowing red eyes followed me, cold and haunting. I wanted to scream, but my throat was constricted. The darkness felt like it was swallowing me whole. I jolted awake. It was just a dream. Tomas was nowhere to be found. Giggling echoed from the living room, not Tomas's. I walked out and froze. Tomas was sitting on the floor, back turned, laughing with the 2 wooden dolls. He turned to look at me. His eyes were lifeless, as if his soul had been lost. The 2 dolls trembled, crawling closer to Tomas, growing larger bit by bit. I rushed to pull Tomas away, but the 2 dolls climbed onto his shoulders and whispered. Tomas suddenly squeezed my wrist so hard that I cried out in pain. I screamed, but my body felt like it was seizing up, the pain uncontrollable. I could no longer feel my body. Each part was turning into wood. Every time I closed my eyes, I lost a part of my memory. I was no longer myself. In the mirror, Tomas and I stood motionless like statues. The 2 dolls had vanished. The next morning, Tomas and I were placed in a paper box and delivered to the doorstep of a strange house. 2 wooden figures, 2 imprisoned souls, sent to another home.
I am Anna, 19 years old this year. I just passed the university entrance exam and moved to the city to study. The first time stepping into the big city, everything was unfamiliar to me. I thought I would have interesting experiences here, but the first memory of this place was something I could never have expected. I rented a room deep in a small alley, about a 10-minute walk from the university. The dormitory is old, with peeling walls, a narrow and dark hallway. The landlady is a woman in her 50s, and she led me to a room on the 2nd floor. At the end of the hallway, the small room appears before me with a simple wooden bed against the wall, an old study table, and a small window overlooking the hallway.
This room is a bit old, but very clean and quiet. What do you think?
I think it's quite nice. May I ask, is anyone staying in the room across the hall?
That room is empty. No one has stayed there yet. You clean the room, and if you need anything, just call me, okay?
I quickly tidied up the room, and once I was done, it was already dark outside. The dormitory was very quiet at night, and I could hardly hear the bustling traffic on the street. I lay on the bed, exhausted, and quickly drifted off to sleep. I vaguely heard footsteps in the hallway. Perhaps someone had just returned to their room, so I didn't pay much attention and continued to sleep. The next day, I was preparing the content for the presentation, and I was so focused on writing that I lost track of time. Pick up the phone to check. It's already 0000 p.m. Suddenly, I heard the sound of footsteps clattering in the hallway. I wondered who could still be walking around outside at this hour. I looked out the window, but the corridor was quiet and empty. A chill ran down my spine. I quickly shut the window and rushed to bed. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by the sound of children playing, and there were whispers of people talking, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. Those sounds seemed to be right outside my room. Is anyone there? I called out, but all I received was an invisible silence, a chilling atmosphere enveloping the entire room. I fearfully turned to look out the window. Suddenly, I saw a shadow standing outside the window, a hazy silhouette. Only part of the face could be seen staring at her. The next morning, I decided to tell the landlady about my experiences over the past few days.
It could just be the sound of a cat. There are a lot of homeless cats in this region at night.
Why didn't you tell me from the beginning?
You must be so exhausted that you're only having nightmares.
I wanted to leave this place, but finding affordable accommodation in the city was difficult. If I were to move out now, I wouldn't know where to go. If those sounds stopped completely, I thought I might be able to stay a little longer. A few days later, I no longer heard those strange sounds. Perhaps the landlady did something to keep them from bothering me. If those sounds completely disappear, I think I could stay here a bit longer. At midnight, I suddenly heard a knock on the door. I got up, stepped outside, and opened it, but no one was there. As I looked around, I noticed a man standing motionless not far away, his back turned to me. A chill ran down my spine as I slowly walked towards the man and called out, "Is anyone there?"
Get out of here. You are not allowed to stay here.
Why am I not allowed to be here? Who are you? The man slowly turned around, the light from the bulb revealing a gruesome, bloodied face, an image I could never forget. Seeing that image, I screamed in fear. But looking around, it was the familiar room again. It turns out everything was just a dream. Suddenly, a knocking sound echoed. I didn't know who was knocking on my door in the middle of the night like that. I began to fear and secretly thought, could it be them? The people in the room opposite? Who is it? Who's out there? The knocking continued to grow louder, as if the person outside was about to break the door down. I was terrified, staring at the door without daring to breathe heavily.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
I knew that if I stayed, even more terrifying things awaited me.
When I woke up, it was already bright outside, and the door was still tightly shut as if nothing had happened. I quickly took everything I had and left this horrible house.
I had a feeling that if I stayed any longer, even more terrifying things would await me.
The man and that room remain a mystery to me. But after everything that has happened, I no longer dare to return to that boarding house again.
Have you ever imagined your life being taken over by someone else? That night, Nancy was lying in the living room, curled up in a thin blanket. Suddenly, her husband John called to say he had to work overtime and wouldn't be home that night. Nancy sighed, got up, locked the front door and the windows tightly, then went up to the bedroom. Around 11 o'clock, she was startled awake by a noise downstairs. There were soft footsteps, mixed with the faint clinking of knives and forks. Nancy rushed down, but the scene before her left her frozen. A woman wearing a plain white mask, holding a knife, was walking around the kitchen. At that moment, the woman looked up, her cold eyes staring directly at Nancy. Terrified Nancy turned and ran back to the bedroom, locking the door behind her. Outside, the pounding on the door echoed relentlessly. She trembled as she pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and curled up in a corner, waiting for the police. A few minutes later, sirens wailed at the gate and flashing lights pierced through the curtains. The banging suddenly stopped, followed by hurried footsteps fading away. When the police entered the house, the masked woman had already escaped through the back door. They searched the area but found no clues, so they eventually left. A few days later, while Nancy and John were having breakfast, the police suddenly stormed into the house. Nancy and John were handcuffed and dragged away in panic, not understanding what was happening. It turned out the two people who had been arrested were actually Alex and June, wanted criminals. They had been watching Nancy and her husband for quite some time. Then, they visited a shop that specialized in making masks to look like other people. The criminals had asked the shop owner to create 2 masks resembling Nancy and John. Once they had their new faces, they planned to kill and impersonate Nancy and John. That night, right after Nancy called 911, she received a message from John. In the message was a photo of John lying motionless in the bathroom, with a red mark around his neck. Horrified, Nancy tried calling her husband, but the ringing came from inside her wardrobe. She opened it with trembling hands and found Alex, his face covered in blood, holding John's phone. Before she could react, the bedroom door burst open and June rushed in, a gleaming knife in her hand. "It's you. You murdered my husband?"
Yes, you'll be seeing him very soon.
With that, she plunged the knife into Nancy's chest, causing her to collapse lifelessly on the floor. They buried Nancy and John's bodies in the backyard. But they didn't know the night they did it. A camera from the neighbor's house recorded everything. However, the neighbor had been away and only discovered the footage several days later, then called the police. Faced with the undeniable evidence, the 2 murderers had no choice but to confess to everything.
Lissy grew up in a violent family, with her biological father being an abusive alcoholic. In a drunken rage, he killed Lissy's mother. When he sobered up, the guilt consumed him, and he took his own life. I was Jane, 20 years old. Lissy was my adoptive sister, taken in by my parents after her biological parents passed away. We grew up under the same roof, but Lissy was always distant and withdrawn, no matter how hard I tried to get close to her. One day, my parents suggested a family trip, hoping it would help Lissy heal after such a devastating loss.
Where would my precious daughter like to go?
I want to go to the beach. We haven't gone in so long, Dad. But I never imagined that a simple conversation would mark the beginning of a terrifying tragedy. That day, my parents attended a party and told us to prepare dinner ourselves. I planned to order food and wanted to ask Lissy if she would like to eat with me.
Lissy, I'm ordering dinner. Do you want anything?
There was no response. The door was unlocked, yet the room remained eerily silent. Hesitating for a moment, I pushed the door open, but Lissy wasn't inside. It was my first time entering her room. Everything was neat and clean. My eyes landed on the desk, where an old diary lay neatly. On the cover, the word "die" was scrawled in bold red letters. A sense of unease rose within me, yet I couldn't stop myself from picking up the diary. Inside were grotesque, twisted drawings drenched in blood, horrifying and disturbing. Frightened, I quickly shut the book and tossed it back onto the desk. My heart pounded, my breath quickened. At that moment, I noticed another word carved deeply into the desk. Kill, with my name etched right next to it. My entire body froze. My breath became heavy. What was Lizzie trying to do? Suddenly, her cold voice rang out behind me.
Jane, who gave you permission to touch my things?
Startled, I turned around to see Lizzie's expressionless face staring at me. Lizzie, what is all this? Lizzie said coldly.
I hate you. I want you dead.
With that, she pulled a sharp knife from her pocket and lunged at me. I quickly dodged, but the blade still sliced deep into my arm, sending a sharp pain through me. Lizzie then kicked me hard in the back, making me fall onto the floor. She opened a drawer, pulled out a rope, and immediately pounced on me, pinning me down. Before I could react, my wrists and ankles were already bound tightly.
Why are you doing this to me?
I hate how happy you are. I hate your stupid, cheerful smile.
She dragged the blade across my cheek, the cold steel sending a chilling sensation through my skin. Lizzie, please stop. Everyone loves you.
Love! You have everything. Parents, vacations, attention. And me? I'm nothing but a discarded piece of trash.
No, Lizzie. We all want you to come with us on the trip.
Shut up! I don't need your pity.
My pleas only fueled her rage. She gripped the knife tightly and stabbed it deep into my thigh. A searing pain shot through my body, and I screamed in agony. Lizzie's fingers tightened around the knife handle, preparing to drive it down with all her strength. I truly thought that would be the last moment of my life. But just then, my mother's terrified scream shattered the air. Looking towards the door, I saw my parents standing there, their faces frozen in horror.
Lizzie, what are you doing?
Lizzie, put the knife down.
Don't come any closer or I'll kill her.
In an instant, my father lunged forward, grabbing Lizzie's wrist and struggling to pry the knife from her grip. Lizzie suddenly bit down hard on my father's hand, making him yelp in pain and loosen his grip. Taking advantage of the moment, she broke free and turned towards me, eyes burning with madness. My father quickly grabbed her from behind, wrapping his arms around her tightly. She thrashed violently, screaming.
Lizzie, my love, please stop.
Lizzie suddenly froze, turning to look at my mother. Her grip on the knife loosened, and it clattered to the floor. Perhaps, at that moment, she remembered her biological mother, the only person who had ever truly loved her. After that day, my parents took Lizzie to see a psychiatrist. She was diagnosed with severe psychological disorders caused by past trauma, so she had to stay at the hospital for treatment. What Lizzie did to me was painful, but I never once hated her. In fact, I felt even more sorry for her. I only wished for our family to be whole again someday.